At 80, Sam Elliot just revealed the 6 actors who've been on his blacklist for decades. What he says will change the way you look at Hollywood legends forever. And the first name on his list? It made him literally walk off a set and never return. Take a moment, breathe deeply, sip some water, and let his words sink in. Imagine what it's like to carry that kind of quiet fury for decades. Sam Elliott's voice has shaped generations. Gravelly, commanding, and instantly recognizable, it carries the weight of authenticity. But behind the mustache, the cowboy hats, and the iconic Western swagger lies a side few fans have ever seen. A quiet, simmering fury that's been building for decades. Despite the immense respect he's earned across his 6-decade career, there are 6 actors Sam has never forgiven. Some for what they did to the craft of acting itself. Others for personal or professional betrayals, or for quietly undermining him behind the scenes. Sam built his career on authenticity. Every role, every line was earned. He wasn't just portraying cowboys, he was one, raised on ranches, steeped in the dust, discipline, and hard-earned lessons of the Old West. Sam brought something to the screen that felt lived in, weathered, and unmistakably real. You could almost smell the leather in his voice and feel the decades of experience in his gaze. Audiences believed him because he was the real thing. So when Kevin Costner appeared as a cowboy in Wyatt Earp and later as the rugged patriarch in Yellowstone, Sam was unimpressed. To him, Costner was Hollywood's version of a cowboy. Clean boots, polished lines, perfect lighting, but none of it authentic. He once confided to a friend that Costner played ranchers like it was a costume, a cosplay of a life he hadn't lived. While fans praised Yellowstone for its high-stakes drama, sweeping cinematography, and gravelly-voiced gravitas, Sam remained skeptical. He didn't see the West he knew. He saw a glossy fantasy designed for audiences who had never hauled a fence post or smelled cattle at sunrise. To him, it was a filtered, romanticized postcard version of reality. Insiders say Sam was even offered a cameo on the show, but declined outright, dismissing it as soap opera with a cowboy hat. That rejection wasn't just about the script. It was a clear, pointed statement about what he felt the show represented. For Sam, Westerns weren't mere entertainment. They were a moral code. He valued grit, restraint, and stoic silence that spoke louder than words. Costner, in his view, brought glamour, big-budget polish, and cinematic appeal, but little of the soul, sweat, and authenticity that defined the West. Even when the two were in the same room, the tension was palpable. One producer once said that Sam never had to raise his voice. The chill between him and certain actors could freeze a desert. And that icy tension? It was only the beginning. Benedict Cumberbatch, too British, too polished, too far removed from the raw grit of the West. In 2021, Sam Elliott stunned both fans and colleagues when he openly criticized the power of the dog. There was no sugarcoating, no diplomatic phrasing wrapped in cautious praise. His words were sharp, unfiltered, and unapologetically blunt, striking like a stray bullet in a silent saloon. Sudden, loud, and impossible to ignore. But this wasn't just about cinematic pacing or artistic choices. It was personal. Sam's focus was squarely on Cumberbatch, the British lead, and his disdain cut deep. He mocked the actor's accent, his stiff posture, and what he called a prissy attempt at embodying a Western rancher. "What the hell does this Brit know about the American West?" Sam scoffed during a podcast appearance, his tone dripping with equal parts disbelief and frustration. The response was immediate and explosive. Fans of both Cumberbatch and the film's modern psychological take on masculinity erupted in protest. Social media lit up with debate. Critics labeled Sam a relic of a bygone era, stubbornly refusing to adapt to a genre he had once helped define. He was accused of gatekeeping, of clinging to outdated ideas of ruggedness, and of shutting out fresh voices. Yet Sam remained unmoved. He didn't release a clarifying statement or soften his words for public consumption. He stood his ground, unflinching. To him, the power of the dog didn't just miss the mark. It disrespected the traditions it sought to honor. In his eyes, the film romanticized broken masculinity and fundamentally misunderstood what the Western genre was meant to convey. Sam wasn't tearing down a single performance. He was defending a legacy, a cinematic form built on quiet strength, hard-earned wisdom, and a deeply personal code of ethics. Cumberbatch never responded directly, though insiders say the criticism stung. Studio executives reportedly debated a subtle rebuttal or a tactful counterstatement, but Cumberbatch chose silence over spectacle. Sam, on the other hand, stayed resolute, like a gunslinger who had taken his 10 paces and already fired. For Sam, the West wasn't a costume, a trend, or a cinematic filter. It was a way of life demanding honesty, integrity, and authenticity. And he wasn't about to let anyone, no matter how acclaimed, rewrite it on his watch. If you thought that ruffled feathers, just wait until you hear who came next. Ashton Kutcher, the actor who, to Sam, embarrassed the craft. Acting, for Elliot, is sacred. Not a popularity contest, not a playground for fame chasers, influencers, or tech entrepreneurs, but a discipline forged through patience, sweat, and raw emotional truth. Every role, he believed, had to come from a real, guttural place. So when Kutcher skyrocketed to fame through That 70s Show, followed by a series of lightweight rom-coms and flashy tech ventures in Silicon Valley, Sam wasn't impressed. He was irritated. To him, this wasn't acting. It was spectacle, style without substance, fame without foundation. To Sam Elliot, working with Ashton Kutcher felt like a slap in the face to everything he stood for. Yet when the two were cast together on Netflix's The Ranch, Sam didn't protest. He showed up, learned his lines, and delivered his work with the professionalism he was known for. That was Sam, steadfast, reliable, unflinching. But behind the scenes, the cracks were evident almost immediately. Crew members say the tension hung in the air even when no words were exchanged. In quieter moments, Sam was reportedly seen shaking his head, quietly venting to staff. "He's a decent guy," he was overheard saying, "but no real actor." It wasn't about Ashton's attitude, it was his approach that got under Sam's skin. To Elliot, Kutcher represented a new breed of Hollywood, one where algorithms mattered more than authenticity, where follower counts outranked resumes, and where charm and surface-level appeal replaced discipline and soul. To Sam, this wasn't progress, it was erosion. The sacred craft of storytelling was being watered down by shortcuts, superficiality, and slick branding. On screen, the show seemed to work. Fans saw chemistry, banter, laughs. But Sam knew the truth. It was just acting, nothing deeper. Kutcher, polished and charismatic in interviews, called Sam a legend, praised him as a mentor. Behind closed doors, however, Sam's words were far less flattering. "He's acting like a guy who saw acting on YouTube," he allegedly muttered to a friend. It wasn't spite. It was standards. Sam wasn't holding a grudge. He was defending a dying code, one that demanded presence, stillness, and truth. He saw a world where storytelling was becoming spectacle, where tradition was being sold for clicks, and it infuriated him. For Sam, the ranch may have entertained fans, but behind the curtain, there was no brotherhood, no genuine bond, only tolerance. And then came the name that truly shook him, Nicolas Cage. Too loud, too wild, too unpredictable. Subtlety, restraint, and quiet power were Sam Elliott's pillars. To him, the most compelling performances didn't shout. They simmered. A single raised eyebrow, a loaded silence, a word held just long enough to cut deep. The soul of acting, Sam believed, lived in the underplayed, the grounded, the nuanced. Nicolas Cage, by contrast, exploded into the mainstream with his eccentric, high-octane style, flailing limbs, bugged-out eyes, sudden, unrestrained outbursts. To Sam, this wasn't brilliance. It was chaos. Cage wasn't inhabiting a character. He was performing a spectacle, a one-man show that hijacked every frame and sucked the oxygen out of the scene. Even when they both appeared on Ghost Rider, Sam kept his distance. Polite, always. Respectful, without question. Warm, not even close. In later interviews, he never named names, but his critiques were unmistakable. He spoke of actors who hijacked the screen with ego, turning every scene into their personal stage play. Louder, bigger, flashier. Friends close to Sam knew exactly who he meant. Cage. "More firework than flame," Sam reportedly said to a confidant. "Big bang, no heat." While Cage built a cult following on unpredictability and manic energy, Sam remained loyal to his craft, steady, patient, and deliberate. He believed in letting performances breathe, in allowing the audience to lean in rather than recoil. For him, acting wasn't about spectacle. It was about presence, truth, and the quiet power of restraint. To Sam Elliot, Nicolas Cage represented a troubling shift in modern cinema, a hunger for shock over story, a love of chaos for chaos's sake. It was style overpowering substance, spectacle replacing artistry. Cage's performances, often called brilliantly unhinged by critics, and even occasionally winning awards, didn't impress Sam for a second. No trophy could redeem what he saw as hollow theatrics. In Sam's eyes, true acting wasn't about going viral or grabbing headlines. It was about looking inward, finding truth in stillness, humanity in subtle gestures, the very qualities he believed Cage had long since abandoned. Sam's admiration for the craft demanded patience, nuance, and depth. He had little patience for flailing limbs, bugged-out eyes, or unrestrained spectacle, but the name that struck him hardest, the one that cut deeper than any critique, was someone he had once called a friend, Jeff Bridges. Sam and Jeff were kindred spirits, two actors cut from the same cloth, gravelly, grounded, poetic in silence. They didn't need flashy monologues or dramatic breakdowns to command a scene. Their strength came from presence, that rare, magnetic stillness few actors ever master. Together, they starred in the cult classic The Big Lebowski, a film that became a cultural landmark. On screen, they were electric, two sides of the same coin. Off-screen, they shared laughter, long conversations, and what seemed like a genuine friendship built on trust and mutual respect. But over time, the bond quietly frayed, not with fireworks or shouting, but through a slow, almost imperceptible unraveling neither addressed aloud. After Bridges won his Oscar for Crazy Heart, Sam noticed a subtle shift. The man who once radiated humility and low-key charm began appearing in high-fashion magazines, attending red carpets with bold political statements on his chest, and participating in meticulously curated press tours. He became harder to reach, a source close to Elliot said. Less grounded, more polished, more Hollywood. To Sam, the honesty that once defined Jeff had been replaced by a carefully constructed image. The simplicity they had cherished, the belief that the work should speak for itself, seemed to dissolve under the weight of celebrity. In a rare interview, when asked about past collaborators, Sam made a cryptic yet unmistakable remark. "Some folks change, others just show who they always were." Many believed this was directed at Bridges. True to his calm, diplomatic nature, Jeff never responded, but the silence that followed was deafening. Festivals were no longer shared, projects no longer supported, the brothers of the screen slowly drifted apart. For Sam, the pain wasn't rooted in ego or rivalry. It wasn't about awards or politics. It was profoundly personal. It was the loss of a bond he once thought unbreakable, a friendship built on values, trust, and a shared reverence for the craft. And when that bond crumbled, it left a quiet ache. One insider say Sam felt deeply, yet rarely spoke about. In that silence lingered a sense of abandonment, heavy and enduring. Not through betrayal, but through drift, through the slow, quiet realization that the man he once stood beside had moved to a place Sam could no longer reach. That ache, the ache of lost brotherhood, was painful enough, but it was nothing compared to what came next. The final name was one Sam never expected to confront: Jared Leto. Method gone mad, Sam Elliott's ultimate pet peeve. Pretension masquerading as confidence. Over-the-top self-seriousness that turns acting into performance art for the ego rather than storytelling for the audience. When Jared Leto became famous for extreme method acting, sending rats to castmates, refusing to break character for weeks, turning film sets into psychological obstacle courses, Sam didn't see brilliance. He saw a gimmick. Headlines, Oscars, accolades, they didn't impress him. He was irritated by the spectacle. Theatrics masquerading as talent, Sam reportedly muttered privately, and he didn't say it lightly. To a friend, he added bluntly, if he needs that much effort just to act, maybe he's in the wrong profession. For Elliot, great acting never required press tours or behind-the-scenes horror stories. It demanded disappearing into a role quietly, efficiently, with dignity. Acting wasn't meant to be a carnival. It was about making a character real, human, and true. Although Sam and Leto never shared a set, insiders say Sam had been attached to a film early in its development. He liked the story, admired the director, but then he learned Jared Leto had been cast. Sam walked. No press release, no dramatic announcement, just a quiet, firm exit. That was the line, drawn clearly and irreversibly. To Sam, acting isn't a circus. It's honesty, subtlety, and respect for the craft. It's about moving people, not shocking them. And that final name, Leto, proved just how far some corners of modern Hollywood had strayed from those roots. Now, at 80, Sam Elliott isn't chasing roles. He's chasing truth. And part of that truth is knowing that some actors, no matter how famous or celebrated, simply don't belong on the pedestal. For Sam, acting is about honesty, tradition, and restraint. And if standing alone is what that requires, he's more than fine with it. In a town full of noise, Sam Elliott remains the last real cowboy. So now we want to hear from you. Which of these feuds shocked you the most? Do you think Sam was being too harsh or simply honest about the craft he loves? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. There are plenty more Hollywood secrets coming your way.